What if I was to tell you the Cubs' walk-off loss in Miami wasn't even one of the two worst parts of the day? This should be fun.
You are Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cubs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Sam Olbert. I'm a lifelong fan taking my passion into a discussion with you on all things Cubs. Thanks for being part of the show and making Locked On Cubs your first listen today in the best way. You can help us grow the show is to listen every day, like the video, and give us a comment below. So much to talk about on this tough Monday. We're going to talk about the Cubs-Marlins walk-off actually a little bit later on. How that happened, why that happened. Really the first time all year I have real question and blame to be handed out to the manager about this one. And what's next for the Chicago Cubs? And if you missed Monday and you're wondering, what do you mean what's next, Sam? They just swept the White Sox. Life's good. Nope. Monday was another example of how fast the news cycle works in baseball and why every day is a brand new show and why you just never know what to expect. It started out before the game with a Shota Imanaga update that I just thought was a big deal. This was an injury that we were told was mild and good news. We're going to reevaluate after 2 weeks. I suspected on the show, all right, a month. And most people commented on that episode were like, no, they said 2 weeks. But I was like, let's just be cautious and give it a month. Well, Craig Counsell gave an update before the game on Monday, said he's Imanaga is going to throw off a mound next week. But his return will be pushed well into June. The injury was more serious than initially thought. We're a ways away. Those were some of the quotes that Craig Counsell was saying from there. So you went into the game going, man, all right, so you're probably going to go, this is going to be a 6-week-ish injury for Imanaga if it goes to mid-June. Could go, if it goes to the end of June, could be an 8-week injury. You're already without Justin Steele. Then you go play a baseball game, which we'll talk about, like I said, in a bit. And then in the 9th inning, I'm going, wait a second. Palencia gets up Sunday, pitches Saturday, pitches Friday. Now he's closing the game. What's going on? Where's Porter Hodge? This doesn't make any sense. I know Hodge's ERA has been a bit inflated, but if this team has any chance to win the Central, Porter Hodge has to be, in my opinion, a big part of their bullpen if he's healthy. And guess what? It turns out he's not healthy. Craig Counsell said after the game that Porter Hodge has an oblique injury. Stop me if you've heard that before. And he's going to the injured list as well. Some other updates just before I get into these injuries. Ian Happ should be back either Tuesday or Wednesday. And then Matt Shaw officially came back on Monday, and Nicky Lopez was designated for assignment. So really the two things you got to focus on and zoom in on are the Imanaga and Porter Hodge injuries. And, you don't have to look very far to look at the impact and how detrimental it could be for the team. I mean, you look at Ben Brown's outing today. It was awful. I don't care about the flashes. It was awful. It wasn't good enough. You look at somebody like Daniel Palencia. He may have been fatigued, whatever. He didn't get the job done. He was one strike away of getting the job done, and you lost a game. And look, we could talk about so many things. Hey, next man up. Hey, we got to figure it out. Hey, Jed has to do things. Look, if you go to every single team in baseball, I don't care who they are, if they're not named the Dodgers and you take away their number 1 starter, their number 2 starter, and their closer, it's going to be really tough sledding no matter who you play. Imagine if you did that to the Padres. You know what I mean? I mean, teams that are reliant on that. And we knew going into the season, when this team was healthy, when Porter Hodge was in the bullpen, when Shota Imanaga and Justin Steele were your 1-2, we all felt like, all right, they're probably a starter and a reliever away going to the deadline. Now you have 2 of those guys down, and the Imanaga injury, was like, all right, maybe it'd only be a 2-3 week thing. This is a real thing. You're without your 2 ace pitchers, or at least ace for you. If you want to call Imanaga and Steele aces of the league, I think you could, especially Steele. And now you're without your closer when you already had a closer, Ryan Presley, who's proven that he can't do that job. Maybe he gets back to it, and lost that. I mean, it has been a disaster for the Cubs on the injury front here over the last, month or two. And I have to say, the way it's presented is it's baffling to me. And I don't, I don't cover other teams. I don't know if it's like that, but like with the Hodge situation, why wasn't he IL'd before the game today? So you could have brought somebody else up. You knew you were thin in that spot. I don't understand that. The Imanaga injury, Council initially, good news. We'll see what happens in 2 weeks. It's going to be a 6 to 8 week injury. They're wrong on that. Council admitted he was wrong. And I know this isn't a Council thing. He's just relaying the information. Council admitted he was wrong on the hap oblique. Remember when that was just day to day, not serious? Okay, well, he's ended up going to the IL. The Justin Steele thing, we had no idea. Guy throws 7 shutout. He had tightness in the 5th. All of a sudden, he's done for the season. I have to have a little bit. I think you have to have a little bit of pause and just a little bit of question about like how they're evaluating these injuries, how they're handling these injuries. It's just, from our standpoint as a show, I don't even, you almost just might as well just read the quotes directly and not even, say anything unless you're going to be pessimistic, because that's the way to go. Guy's going to be day to day. Assume he's going to be out 2 weeks. Guy's going to be out 2 weeks. Assume he's going to be out 4. It's just, I don't understand it. The Imanaga thing, they're probably just being cautious. And, when he comes back, it'll be a huge lift. And with Porter Hodge, I got to say, he didn't. I really wonder how long this has been an issue for him, because he has just not looked himself to me. The velocity has been really good lately, but he just hasn't been himself. He hasn't had that nasty bite. He hasn't gotten those whiffs, those strikeouts that you came accustomed to seeing last year from him. And so, I wish I had better news for you. I usually have pretty good news on these solo shows, but today kind of all landed in the negative area. But, the Cubs are going to have their work cut out for them. And it really doesn't matter whether they're playing the Marlins, the Reds, the Rockies. It is very hard to win games when you are not healthy at the back end of your bullpen and you're not healthy at the top of your rotation. And, it really stuck out on Monday's game, and it's going to continue to stick out. I mean, these performances like Colin Ray are great. Matthew Boyd, great. Pomerantz, Thielbar. There's been a lot of guys, even Palencia until tonight's implosion has been great, but you need your guys. You need Porter Hodge. If I were to tell you, about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, yeah, we're going to be in the middle of May, no Hodge, no Steele, no Imanaga. I mean, I would have had a full-on panic attack. So the Cubs are going to have a lot of work to do. I suspect Jed's going to have to make some moves and, go from there, because I'm not sure the Cubs will be able to survive this that long with their current crop of guys. Like I said, it was all over the place. It was evident on Monday night where the Cubs had holes, and it led to a very difficult loss. We're going to break that down coming up next. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. I am somebody that uses all those online food delivery services. I'm always ordering out. And it wasn't until I started using Monarch when I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Managing money also with your partners smoother than ever. You can track personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. We are back here on Locked On Cubs after a heartbreaking, maybe the most heartbreaking defeat so far of the young campaign. It was a game that really summarized where the Cubs are at with their injuries. It started with Ben Brown, who just wasn't good enough on Monday night. And, Daniel Palencia is going to get a lot of blame. I'm even going to throw some blame at Craig Counsell for this loss. But it's always very difficult when your starter can't make it through 5 innings. And Ben Brown went 4 2/3, 7 hits, 6 earned runs on Monday night. He started out the game giving up back-to-back home runs. Then he retired 12 in a row, and then he completely imploded there in the 5th inning. And that's Ben Brown right now. That's Ben Brown. He is a flashes guy. He shows signs of being really good, but the results aren't really good. And I got to tell you, and this is going to sound really unprofessional, but it's like I don't even want to have a long-term conversation about Ben Brown because pitching changes so much year to year. I really can't tell you what Ben Brown will be as a starter next year or the year after. Look at who the Cubs are facing tomorrow, Ryan Weathers. All of a sudden, he's this hot commodity. For 3-4 years, he couldn't figure it out. Corbin Burns was one of the worst starters in baseball, went to Milwaukee, fixed it. I mean, there's 900 examples of guys that figure it out. So I don't want this to become a long-term Ben Brown conversation because baseball, it's so volatile. There's so much variance in it that you just don't know year to year what's going to happen. Carson Kelly and Miguel Amaya have been the best catching tandem in baseball by far. And going into the year, who would have thought that, right? Like there's just so many slight adjustments, pitch grips, all these things. But what I could tell you is that right now he's not helping the Chicago Cubs. He's not helping the Chicago Cubs whatsoever. This was a game that Brown should have been able to just attack, give the Cubs a really good chance to win. I was so proud of the Cubs offense in this game. We're going to talk more about that. But, it just wasn't good enough. And, I get tired of, stuff looked good and the flashes were good. Cubs need results right now. They really need results. Ben Brown isn't going anywhere because of their current pitching situation, and they need him to be better. As far as the game goes, there's so much good in this game offensively. The Cubs picked up the slack. They got nothing from Pete, nothing from Kyle, very, very little from Seiya. Big days for Miguel Amaya, 2 hits, 5 RBIs, a home run, a double. He was magnificent in this game. Nico's on a really big hit streak. The bottom of the order did more than enough to win. I thought, if you want to be real picky on a real key play before we get to the obvious, Moises Ballesteros, got thrown out at home on a ball that he should have beat out. He was safe, but his cleat kind of got stuck over the plate. It was a great challenge by the Marlins. Give them credit. And he was out there. That hurts you in a 1-run game. But, there's so much good. Miguel Amaya, man, I mean, this guy has been unbelievable for the Cubs now. All the talk about Carson Kelly, and it's been rightful. Miguel Amaya now slashing 287, 323, 529. When people are wondering, how are the Cubs still a game up on the Cardinals with all these injuries? Their pitching is a complete mess right now. Well, look at a guy like Miguel Amaya. I mean, we haven't even really talked about Miguel Amaya that much on the show because of Pete, because of Tucker before this slump, because of Seiya, because of Kelly, Nico, Swanson, and Amaya's just been an unsung hero and really deserved to be really maybe the guy we led with on a different day today, but the Cubs could get it done. But the big story in this game, and the one that just really, really hurt you was Daniel Palencia in the 9th inning. And if you didn't watch, there was an 0-2 count, nobody on, 2 outs, Cubs up a run to Darius Hill, who was at the plate. This is somebody that is now slashing 197, 258, 344 on the year. He has a strikeout rate of almost 40%. He had no chance unless Daniel Palencia made a big mistake. And on an 0-2 pitch, he throws his slider, even though he always grips his splitter. He didn't throw that at all. Hung it. And it was what looked like not a catchable ball from Tucker, but a ball that maybe he could have caught. It's so hard to judge when you're watching on TV if a ball should have been caught or not. But it doesn't matter. And I'm not just saying that. It doesn't matter who it is. That ball should not be put in play. 0-2, nobody on, 2 out to a speedster who can't hit. You cannot make a mistake And I know that's the response. That's what Counsell said. He made a mistake. Can't make it. Can't make it. We all make mistakes. There's certain mistakes you can't make. That ball needs to be thrown in the first base dugout. Just not right down the middle to Darius Hill. And then that was it. The second that ball landed, it never felt like the Cubs were going to win that game. 4-pitch walk to the 9-hitter. And this is where I have to loop in Craig. Counsell said after the game that he really attributed a lot of it to fatigue for Palencia. He thinks he was just tired. Well, then why did he get a chance to face Jesus Sanchez, who can hit a fastball, was on all night long tonight, seeing the ball really well? It was obvious that Palencia only had confidence in the fastball. Sanchez is a dead red. He can handle velocity. I know you didn't have Thielbar and you didn't have Palencia, which goes back to my point about Ben Brown. But if you knew he was tired, just throw anybody else. Give Flexen a chance, a soft tosser, somebody to maybe throw off Sanchez. I know people are like, Sam, that's so hindsight of you. Go look at my Twitter. The second that happens, like, this is a bad matchup. And then after the game, you admit that you knew he was tired. So why does he get a chance there? The game's on the line. Like, I always have a problem. I never have a problem with managers when they say, all right, this guy's tired, whatever, we're down 3. We're down 4. That's fine. Throw him to the wolves and let that guy get hit. But when you have a chance to win a baseball game by a run, it's so precious, especially now knowing Porter Hodge is hurt, now knowing that you're really thin in the bullpen. You've got to make sure, hey, you know what? I got to tell you, Tommy, it's not trending well with him. He's thrown a lot. He's thrown a lot of pitches. Let's just get anybody else in there. I know it's hindsight of me. I think I've done a pretty good job. I really haven't talked much Counsell all year. I think he deserves some blame for that one. Palencia threw Friday, Saturday, got up Sunday, and then had to close a 1-run game on on Monday against the Marlins. And then you had 2 guys on, all that stress. Anybody else would have been fine there. I mean, Presley had already pitched. Obviously, it would have been Keller's job to begin with if he was available, so he was down. Thielbar pitched, Pomerantz pitched. So the guys that you had available. It probably would have been something like a Flexen. In that case, you're short Hodge. You're staying away from Keller. You really don't have any other options. Probably the counter to my point is if you bring in Flexen and he gives up like a tie, he might have to finish the game. But just I don't know. It just. Watching that game, I'm like, this is going to be such a tough loss. It was so obvious. And I just stood there and I stared for so long. I couldn't even do my recap. I couldn't even do the post game. I was just, that one hurt. And then I waited. The reason why the show took a while to get up tonight is because I waited and I wanted to hear something wasn't right. There's no way that Hodge, like people are, Hodge, hasn't pitched well. Palencia earned that opportunity. Even if that was the case, with the way Craig uses his relievers, he wouldn't have gone to Palencia for the 4th straight day, having him get up. There was obviously a health concern there, and we learned that the health concern was Porter Hodge. So much to discuss from this game and what's next for the Cubs. Out Hodge, out Imanaga, out Steele, and I want to talk about what's next and how the Cubs can figure out a way to survive yet another really difficult obstacle this season. We talk about that coming up next. We are back here on Locked On Cubs, and as talked about earlier, the Cubs are now out probably, I would say, maybe 2 plus, maybe 3 more weeks than we thought with Shota. I think all of us were kind of circling. He got injured May 4th. So, a month would have been June 4th, and now it looks like we're looking mid to late June. And then after Monday night's loss, Porter Hodge goes to the IL with an oblique injury. And so you say, well, what now? What do the Cubs do, right? Like, who are they going to call up? What are the next steps? How do they navigate through this? Well, the good news is I've learned from this show. I've learned from sports. It's always never as bad as it seems. It's always never as good as it seems. You go back to Sunday, just 24 hours ago. Cubs sweep the White Sox, 2 games up. We haven't even gotten a good Tucker stretch in a long while. Pete's MVP conversations, and literally just one day later, it all changes. It'll change back. Vibes will change with a better performance on Tuesday, and maybe they come back and win the series. I mean, this is how baseball goes. I will say the urgency feels ramped up, and doesn't feel as comfortable because the St. Louis Cardinals are the hottest team in baseball right now, maybe outside of Minnesota. As I'm doing this show, they're up 5-0 on the best team in baseball, the Tigers right now, and they have one of the best closers in the game, and so the urgency ramps up. And so what do you do? Well, it's very difficult to make a trade for a closer or a really high level established relief arm this early for so many reasons. Reason number one, teams don't like to give up on their season this early. Now, you have teams like the White Sox, you have teams like the Rockies that their season's already over. So that reason doesn't apply. But reason number two is you just don't like to give up a whole lot for a guy this early. You want a bigger sample to make sure you're getting a really elite reliever. So I think the path for the Cubs here is to do something that they've done actually a pretty good job of the last couple years, and that is find somebody you like with good tools, a Brad Keller type, a Jorge Lopez type. I'm using examples of this working out. Last year, a Tyson Miller type. This year, a Drew Pomeranz type. Find one of those guys, maybe from another team that you're like, hey, I think if this guy just changes his four-seam grip and his slider grip, that something really could happen here. See if you can catch lightning in a bottle with that. I do think, somebody from AAA is going to come up and get an opportunity. Luke Little has been really, really good lately. And I know people are going to be like, well, the last time we saw Luke Little, he couldn't throw a strike. Yes, but that's the type of guy you need somebody now to take a step forward in your organization. Daniel Palencia, he had a really good chance to do that on Monday night. And I feel bad for him a little bit because I do think fatigue played a part in it, which why it wasn't totally his fault. I still just, I can't, that 0-2 pitch to Darius Hill, man, this show would have a lot different of a feel. But, a guy like Luke Little needs to come up or whoever it is that they bring up from AAA and say, all right, I'm going to really help this team. I'm going to take a step forward of this team because, you're going to play games now and, these big games on the road, no Hodge, Brad Keller will be the ninth inning guy. I think that's pretty obvious. Ryan Presley pitched in a big spot today. So I think, I don't know if he's earned the trust back from Craig Counsell, but I think he's just kind of has to be there. And, you feel great about the lefties. Drew Pomeranz even got out some righties today, so maybe Pomeranz goes up a slot as well. Thielbar becomes your lefty specialist. Pomeranz faces both sides because he's been really good. And you have a Pomeranz, Palencia, Presley, Keller combo. You're able to probably survive the next, however many games. You got the two more at the Marlins that are going to be tough now. Cincinnati's playing a lot better. Then you come home, you face the Rockies, but then you get Cincinnati again at home before you go to Washington. The Cubs are in a good spot. They're 5-2 in this 7-game stretch. But after that, when you start facing these tough teams, you're not going to beat St. Louis with the way they're playing like this. So you're going to have to figure out a way to piece it together. Obviously, we need to know how long Porter Hodge is going to be out. We know the Imanaga situation. Transferring over to the starters. I really don't know what the solution is right now with that. I think it's similar to what I said about the bullpen. It's just really hard to make a big move now. You take a guy like with Miami today, like an Edwin Cabrera, that'd be a great guy to add. He's got really good stuff. He's a high ceiling guy. And even if he isn't that good, it's probably better than what you have now. I don't know if you're able to pull off that deal this early because you're going to probably have to give up 150 cents on the dollar. So maybe you go sniff around, and we'll talk about some options for just another veteran guy. Cause I got to tell you, Matthew Boyd, who's been great, Colin Ray, who's been great, J-Mo, who's been very up and down, Ben Brown and Cade Horton. That's just, to me, that's not a competitive starting rotation to win a division. Could you survive against bad teams? Absolutely. But that is not a rotation that should make you feel any sort of confident that this team could hang in there. And even when Shota comes back, I mean, unless Cade has some outings in him that we didn't expect, and he shows tremendous growth, there's a lot. And I was gonna, even before we heard the Imanaga news, I was going to talk about how the Cubs are, playing good baseball, but there's some major flaws right now that are, very easy to see. And then obviously you get the news about Imanaga, you get the news about Hodge, and those flaws and those holes just get bigger and bigger. Double down, you have a walk-off. It's a tough night. The other way to go is the Cubs need Kyle Tucker back. The Cubs need Kyle Tucker back, because the way they're going to have to win games now, especially against these bad teams and these bad pitchers, Kyle Tucker's got to be great. He just does. And he had a better day on Monday in terms of hitting the ball. This stretch that he's in right now reminds me a lot of spring, where it's just like, something's just a tick off. He's getting the pitches he wants. He's swinging at the right pitches. Some of them he's hitting it hard, hitting the ground. They need Kyle Tucker back. This is where you need a superstar to just go on a heater. The Cubs PCA's done his job. You need this offense probably to go on another heater now. It's going to be tough on Tuesday against a guy like Weathers. But after that, you're going to need some heaters, because you're going to see a lot of 7-6, 8-7. We gave up 8 runs today to the Miami Marlins, one of the worst offenses in baseball. You're going to need your stars to play like stars. You get Ian Happ back hopefully tomorrow, if not tomorrow, Wednesday. And, you're going to need those guys to perform when you're, running out your preseason 3rd starter, number 1, 4th starter, number 2. Then you have 3 guys in Ray, Brown, and Horton that weren't even a part of the rotation. Then you're missing Assad too. Now you're missing Porter Hodge. You might as well say you're missing Presley, because Presley's job was to close. He's not doing that. It's a lot right now. And the Cubs have done a lot of amazing things to get themselves to 28-20. They've definitely built themselves a little buffer, but you just don't want that buffer to end now, because this is the part of the schedule that you want to eat. You don't want to survive through the schedule. You want to eat. And, it's tough to eat. And when you're missing this many guys and you're going through what you're going through. So overall, obviously just a very difficult Monday night for the Cubs. They get walked off. They lose Porter Hodge. They find out that Imanaga is going to be gone for longer. Shout out to Matt Shaw, who came back, looked really good at the plate. That's great news. Had a double to right center field, a single up the middle. He came back. We'll talk so much more when Matt comes back. There's so much more to unpack from this show, but the big takeaway is the Cubs have a lot of holes right now with injuries, and they're going to have their work cut out for them no matter who they're playing, to continue winning games at a really high rate, because that's just it's nobody's fault. That's just baseball. Any company, when you lose your best guys, you're going to be in trouble, and you can make the case going into the year the Cubs right now are down their 3 best pitchers. Thank you so much for checking out this edition of Locked On Cubs. You give us 30 minutes, we'll give you all things Cubs with a laugh or two along the way. Be sure to hit subscribe on YouTube, smash the like button for the algorithm, and leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. I'm Sam Olber, and this is Locked On Cubs.